Today I'm gonna raise this threshold here. This is a Mastercraft door, and as you can see, the door opens right onto the floor here, so I can't put a rug on the floor, and that's the reason I gotta lift this up, this threshold up, and raise the door up. I could maybe take this threshold and make it this part here and make it thicker, but then that's just kind of a tripping hazard. So if some of you don't know, a lot of these doors come with screws on this part here where you can actually raise this. If you unscrew it, raises the threshold up. That's mainly to adjust if, say, on one side of the door you got a little bit of a gap, on the other side of the door it's pretty tight. That's just to really just to level it up. It's not really to raise it way up. And even if I were to do that, it's just going to be kind of, you got a gap forming there. It's not even high enough. I took I don't know, this is a 1x3. A 1x3 is about 3/4 of an inch thick, and that's about the height I would like this to raise. It's about 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm gonna do, I already scored right here along the bottom where there's some caulking, if you do have that, and then I scored their caulking right here. The way this threshold sits on the door is it butts up right here. It kind of goes underneath this piece and comes out and butts up against this other side here. So you really just need to take whatever thickness, whether it's 1/2 inch, you can get a 1/2 inch board, or take a 1x3, but it's really not 1 inch, it's 3/4 inch. And if you butt this right up against the, I don't know what you'd call this piece here, but and then you take an oscillating multi-tool with a right now I kind of have like a multi-material blade on it. You can actually just take this and cut the thickness where you want, or the height you want this to come up to here, with whatever material you're going to use as a guide. I'm just going to cut through this here. Nicely. I'm going to do the other side here. Is not to, you don't push this as hard as you can to get through it. You kind of set it with just a light amount of pressure and let that cut right through it, because if you push it's not gonna cut. So just kind of loosely push it against it and it'll cut through whatever material you got a lot easier. And now I'm gonna change this blade out with something narrower so that I can get back behind here, so I can get this block out. All right, I got a little bit of a narrower blade on there. I'm sure you can buy something narrower than this. This is just what I had. But just gonna come in behind here, and really, if you can, actually, if you got a big enough gap here, you can maybe slide the blade between this metal part and in the door frame here. So I was able to, with a little bit of fight, and get this through here. I didn't get it on camera, it's just that I need to get a tripod, but I got this through all the way to the other side. Then I had to take a flathead and kind of pop it out. And I had to come back in here and flatten out some stuff here just to get it nice and flat. And then from coming straight in all the way, this just pops off. I did the same to this side. So once you got these blocks out, you're gonna wanna take your multi-tool here and make sure it's not a wood only blade. Make sure it's a multi-material or something like that. As you can see, it's got little nails sticking out of the wood because it's meant to cut, because there's some staples, either staples or nails going from the frame into this threshold right here, and it's holding it in place. Otherwise I'd be able to lift this up. So we want to come in here with our multi-tool and maybe come in, I don't have enough of a gap here to get it in, so I got to come in at an angle and then down. And once you feel like a resistance where your nail is, don't push, just let it stay on until it gets through it, and then it'll pop through. You'll see here. The other side here. So I'm going to come in back here. You can see it kind of stopped right there, so there is a nail or something right there. Pretty sure we're through. I'm gonna have another one. I think I got another one coming in right about here, so I'm gonna open the door up. I got this little threshold piece here. I'm just gonna take that off. It's just held on by a little bit of glue. We can glue it back on. Maybe. Oh. Maybe get a new piece of that kind of tore off. But anyway, I'm gonna come in through here. Same thing. Stuck here for a little bit, and then I let it go, and it eventually popped through down. So there. And I got another one probably right over here. Let it go until it pops through. I think we got them all. Next, you're gonna take as long as you've scored that, you're gonna take a crowbar, if you do have caulking right under here like me, and just kind of get underneath. I already tapped it a couple times to get this through. And then just do a little bit of prying. Should come up pretty easily. If you don't, you'll have to find the resistance where it's held down. If you feel resistance back here, like I said, just there's some screws underneath this. You'll have to take this off and take those screws out. This one might be caught on something on that side. Let's see. Popped up on that side pretty easily. Maybe I just need to give it a little bit of muscle and pop it up. There we go. So now, as you can see, it is lifted up, and this is actually the height I'm going to want it. It went right up to where I scored this piece earlier. So this is the height, actually the height I'm going to want it. As you can see, there's a lot higher of a gap. I'm going to be able to fit a rug here, no problem. But for now, I'm just going to remove this piece. By doing that, I'm just going to hammer that down and slide it over. It might get caught on some stuff. And if this is in pretty rough shape, if it's wood or maybe it's just really old, you can actually buy these from the store, from like Home Depot or something. Anyway, I'm gonna kind of give this a couple taps. Crowbar. Some are going to be easier to get out than others, for sure. Man, this was a tight fit, that's for sure. Careful not to hit your hardwood here. I'm gonna I need both hands for this. Just kind of, you might have to just kind of pull this out, give it a few taps, and it should come out. And I got this piece out. I had to actually, on mine, I had a piece of trim here sticking up a little bit, kind of catch it on the back side of this. So I had to pop that piece of trim off. So I just went ahead and unscrewed these adjustment screws all the way until this popped off. And for this specific Mastercraft door, it just, you can screw it back in. Some other doors, you can actually just pull this off, pop it off. I've done another door that was like that. And I went ahead and popped it off because when I go to secure this back on the door frame, I'm gonna need some extra securement for this to stay down since it's no longer nailed in the side anymore. So I'm just gonna drill a couple holes. I'm not gonna use, I mean, these are just for that, raising that threshold. Some other door frames will have already pre-drilled holes like the other one I've used. I'm just gonna go ahead and I will do 2 holes. So I went ahead and measured the width here, just underneath this guy here. There's exactly 36 inches, and I cut a couple of spare pieces of cedar. You can probably use any kind of wood. It's really just kind of basically a shim. If you want to go about it the best way, I would use pressure treated, just because this can, if it does get wet, it'll just last longer. But I'm going to use cedar. That's what I had. I'm going to slide these shims that I created in place here. So I'm going to fasten these down with, I got a nail gun. You can use nails, screws, whatever you want to use. I don't know, four nails should be enough. Just to hold that. When you got these fastened down, you are going to have to remove the door, just because, I mean, I got cord here, but it's going to be too thick in the back to fit where you would cut earlier, so it needs to come in from the back side, but the door isn't going to be in the way, unless you can swing this door all the way open, which I can't. Maybe you can get it in, but you might still have to take the door out. So just pop these pins out, take the door off, and I'll be back with you. So pop the door off. By the way, this board is the same thickness as the board I used to measure from the threshold to this piece right here. So that just works out nice. You set that down first, and then you come around the back here and kind of slide that into place. And you're gonna need to tap it a few times. Tap it in, and I'll come back to you when that's done. All right, I got that tapped into place here. And now on my door, I had this sloped piece of 2x6 underneath, and that's causing this not to line up here. There's a little bit of a gap. But what I'm gonna do is just take a couple of shims and put that between this shim that I put down and the threshold itself. I'm gonna start at the very corner and just kind of slide that into place. And that has it tied up on this corner, but it's a little looser on this side, so I'm gonna throw another one in right here. And there you have it. It's pretty tight up against that. And I'm gonna do the same to this side. And I'm gonna probably put 2 in the middle here, and that'll bring it up tight up against the frame here. All right, so I got my shims in there. Kind of broke them off and then hammered the rest of them in. Now that's pretty tight. We wanna make sure that this is lined up with the trim here. This one's got a bit push handle slightly. That's pretty good. And then these holes that we pre-drilled, we don't want to use the holes with the thread because that's for the threshold adjustment. We want to use these 2 holes that we drilled earlier, and we're gonna throw a couple screws in there. You don't want to over tighten it. Once it touches the frame, give it a couple of screws, and there you have it. That's secured in place. So next I'm gonna just screw this adjustment back in place. Wasp just got in my house, so gonna have to keep an eye out for that. I got 2 of them in there now. Now that I've got this threshold in place, I'm gonna trim the door. So I'm gonna take that, carry the door, lay it flat on a table, take that little trim piece off, and I'm just gonna take the 3/4 inch measurement that I used to bring the threshold up and take that much off the bottom of the door, and maybe a little more than that because I can always raise this. Better to be a little bit higher. This is all the way down at the moment, but be a little bit higher just so the new seal isn't pinched too tight when it's closing. So I've got my door here. What I've done is I took the thickness of the board that I measured up to 3/4 inch here. I drew a straight line where I'm going to cut. I put some tape on the door to prevent chipping, although this is a metal door, so I don't think we're going to have too much of an issue with that, but I just did that just in case. And I took a spare board here, a straight board, and I measured the width of the edge of the guide to the saw, which is 1.5 inches, and I placed it, or I measured 1.5 inches from this line to this board. I'm gonna use this as a guide to cut. I'm cutting a metal door. If you're using a metal door, you might need to change out like I did. I changed out the saw blade here to a metal cutting saw blade. Otherwise, if a wood one would work just fine. You just got to go slow. So, got the door back on. I painted it while it was off. It's a good time to paint it, and I put this new just slip-on rubber seal on the bottom of the door also. And went ahead and bought a rug. Got plenty of clearance now, and got the door nice and level. Had to level this out a little bit, but to do that you just gotta screw these screws, just mess with them a little bit to raise and lower it. It was higher of a gap on this side, so I had to bring it up. Lower of a gap on this side, bring it down a little bit. And now it seals nicely. Also, before I forget, just make sure to run a bead of caulking right here, just so when it rains, you're not getting anything where you don't want it to be back here underneath or beneath your threshold. And if you put a new trim piece on like I did, just make sure that's caulked up nicely so that water has a route to go that doesn't go where you don't want it into your house.